Virtu-Quest, Conqueror of Fears. Trapped in a maze of ones and zeros, Larry awoke to the dull hum of a virtual sun overhead. He was not in his soft, king-sized bed in his modern uptown apartment. Instead, he was now lying on pixelated grass. The flashing neon sign materialized in front of him, flickering in hazy, bright colors. "Welcome to Virtu-Quest, the game of the future."
Perfect.
Larry groaned, pushing himself to his feet.
Games. I hate games.
Despite his dislike for games, Larry was no stranger to virtual reality. His consciousness, like all other humans, was routinely uploaded into the cloud, a realm of intangible existence that allowed you to travel, work, and play without the physical constraints of your body. It was a Friday night, and Larry had planned to meet his friends at a virtual bar for a drink. Somehow, he had landed up here instead. As Larry ventured further into the game, he encountered a colossal stone wall etched with menacing gargoyles. The only way forward was through a narrow archway, just big enough for one person to squeeze through. Larry was a self-proclaimed claustrophobic. His heart pounded against his digital chest as he approached the opening.
Deep breaths, Larry.
He muttered to himself. As he moved through the tight archway, a wave of dread washed over him. He emerged on the other side, relieved but disoriented. Suddenly, a ferocious roar echoed around him, and a towering dragon materialized from thin air. Its scales shimmered in the virtual sun, and its eyes glowed in ominous red. Larry, with his irrational fear of lizards, dragons being close enough, froze. He had never confronted his fears in the safety of his own apartment, let alone in a virtual reality game filled with such grotesque representations of them. The dragon lumbered towards him, the ground trembling with each step. Larry found himself running, dodging flaming balls of fire, narrowly escaping the beast. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he managed to find refuge behind a giant boulder. His heart pounded in his chest, his digital sweat dripped from his brow, but he felt strangely invigorated. His journey through the game continued in this peculiar fashion. He wrestled with giant, muscled spiders, echoing his real-life fear of the tiny eight-legged creatures. He jumped over bottomless pits, his fear of heights making his stomach churn with every leap. Each encounter was terrifying, and yet, Larry started to notice a strange transformation within him. He was learning, growing, developing a sense of confidence he'd never felt before. One final challenge awaited him, a towering doppelganger, an exact digital replica of himself, glaring back at him with a challenging smirk. This was not a fear of monsters or heights or creepy crawlies. This was different and much deeper. Larry had always struggled with his self-esteem, always doubted his abilities, always feared he wasn't good enough. Now, standing face to face with himself, he had to confront the insecurities he'd harbored for so long. They fought. They grappled. Each blow his doppelganger delivered was like a punch to his own insecurities, his doubts, his fears. The battle was grueling, but Larry fought back. He struck at the digital replica, his attacks growing more potent, more confident. In the end, it was Larry who emerged victorious. As his doppelganger dissolved into a shower of pixels, a profound sense of accomplishment washed over him. Suddenly, the game world around him began to shimmer, distort, and gradually fade away. Larry found himself standing back in his own apartment. As Larry blinked, the apartment around him solidified. The hum of the city filled his ears. The familiar scent of his homemade coffee lingered in the air, and yet, he felt different. He looked down at his hands, noting the solidity, the tangibility that contrasted the fluidity of the digital world. A series of notifications flashed in the corner of his vision, the ever-present connection to the cloud. Friends wondering where he was, work emails piling up. Normally, these would spike his anxiety, but now, he brushed them aside with newfound calmness. Emboldened, Larry decided to do something he had been avoiding for a long time. He pulled up the contact info for his estranged brother, Mike, who had moved across the globe years ago following a bitter argument. Reaching out to Mike was something Larry always feared, the potential rejection a constant deterrent. But now, after defeating dragons, jumping over abysses, wrestling his own insecurities, a phone call didn't seem so terrifying. Larry composed a message, his fingers shaking slightly.
Hey, Mike, it's Larry. I was thinking, maybe it's time we catch up. What do you think?
He had said before he could talk himself out of it. The fear of rejection still lingered, but it was smaller now, manageable. While he waited for a response, Larry decided to tackle another lingering fear, his fear of cooking. With the memory of battling his giant spider fear still fresh in his mind, Larry rolled up his sleeves and started preparing dinner. He sliced, diced, and sautéed, mimicking what he had seen on numerous cooking shows. When he plated up the meal, a simple pasta dish, he realized it was not the Michelin star quality he'd envisioned. Yet, he was proud of himself for trying. Just as he was about to take the first bite, a buzz alerted him to a new message. It was Mike.
Hey, Larry. It's been a long time. I'd like that. Let's catch up soon.
Larry grinned at the message, his heart light with relief. The virtual reality game might have been a strange and terrifying detour, but it had given him a new perspective. Fear was a monster, yes, but one he was capable of battling. Over the next few days, Larry found himself tackling life with a vigor he hadn't known before. He invited friends over for a home-cooked meal, he took on new projects at work, he even signed up for a rock climbing class, something his old self would never have dreamed of doing. As the days turned into weeks, Larry began to realize that he wasn't just living anymore, he was thriving. His life was still fraught with challenges, of course, but they seemed less insurmountable, less intimidating. The game had granted him a courage he hadn't known he possessed. However, despite his newfound confidence, Larry still avoided one thing: games. His experience in Virtu-Quest, though transformative, had left him with an aversion to anything game-related. That is, until one evening, he found himself staring at a virtual reality headset, contemplating whether he was ready to conquer that fear as well. With a deep breath, Larry picked up the headset. The memory of dragons, spiders, and towering walls flashed before his eyes. But alongside them was the memory of the triumphs, the victories over his fears. Larry knew that life was not a game, but maybe games, with their challenges and trials, could teach you a thing or two about living. And with that thought, he put on the headset, ready for another round of Virtu-Quest, ready to face whatever the game had in store for him. After all, he was no longer just Larry. He was Larry the Fear Conqueror, Larry the Dragon Slayer. He chuckled at his own thoughts. It seemed he still had more fears to conquer and insecurities to face, and he was ready. As the familiar hum of the virtual world welcomed him, Larry smiled. The game was on.
The end. Thank you for watching. This has been a StoryPod Realm original.